Good morning. Welcome to Regional Park's Instagram Live programming for Tuesday, October 20th. My name is James, and with me behind the camera is Nicole, and today we have a storytime program all about raccoons. We are at Mission Creek Regional Park in the middle of Kelowna on the traditional and unceded territory of the Okanagan Silt people. So raccoons, we all know raccoons. They are those cuddly, little mischievous bandits that are out during the night running around town. And they are the perfect creature during our COVID times. They wear a mask, they always wash their hands, and they're solitary, so they self-isolate. So we just have to be like raccoons during these days. And that brings us to three characteristics of raccoons that we all know are the unique and distinct characteristics about them. The first off being their black mask. All raccoons over their eyes have a nice black mask you can see right there in the picture. This mask is perhaps an adaptation. It's not known for sure, but it's suspected that this helps reduce glare at night to help them see during night because they are nocturnal, of course. The second item that is unique and distinct about raccoons is their very dexterous or very agile and nimble paws, especially their front paws. So here's their two paws. The front ones have longer fingers and little claws, and their back ones are a bit shorter and have longer claws, which help them climbing. But these ones with their digits that almost act like our fingers help them crack nuts, dig for clams, dig for worms, pick berries, and do all sorts of very technical and complex actions. And this is how raccoons actually get their name. The name raccoon in the Algonquin language means, let me just double check, he who scratches with his hand, because they use their hands a lot. And in German, their name is Waschbär. I'm probably not pronouncing that right. And in Mandarin, it's Huan Xiang. Both of those translate to wash bear because they like to wash their food, and they're often seen near water and washing stuff with their hands because they're so agile.
French? Raccoon laveur.
Is it?
Yes. So laveur, washer.
Washer.
Yeah.
The third characteristic is their tail. Their tail is ringed. You can see again on the picture there, and can have anywhere between 5 to 10 black rings on their bushy tail, and it can be up to 20 centimeters long. These, of course, were popular for people's hats in times past in Canada. Our first book today is called Chester Raccoon and the Almost Perfect Sleepover, written by Audrey Penn, illustrated by Barbara Gibson, and published by Tanglewood Books. Chester Raccoon hopped and skipped and bounced on his way to Pepper Opossum's tree for his very first sleepover. "Are we almost there?" he asked his mother. "Will we get there soon?" "Do you see that tall white oak on the far side of the butterfly pond?" asked Mrs. Raccoon. "Uh-huh." "Well, that's where we're going." A few minutes later, Chester and his mother were standing by the opossum's tree. Have fun at your overday," Mrs. Raccoon told Chester. "I'll pick you up the moment the sun sets." She nuzzled his ear and kissed him right in the middle of his palm. Chester squeezed his fingers around his mother's kissing hand and felt her love and warmth all over. But when she turned and walked away, the little raccoon felt nervous and excited all at the same time. This was his first whole day away from home. "Let's go have some fun," Mrs. Opossum told him. Chester followed her up the tree to the lowest branch facing Willow Creek. Pepper Opossum and several of Chester's other friends were already there. "We're hanging upside down by our tails," Pepper called. "I can tell," laughed the little raccoon. He tiptoed over Pepper's long pink tail, Stanley Squirrel's fluffy gray tail, the badger's thick brown tail, and then hung upside down between his best friend, Cassie Raccoon, and Sassafras Skunk. An amber porcupine hung farther down the branch. "This is fun," Chester told Pepper. "The whole world is upside down." "Whew, what's that smell?" grumbled Badger. "Pee-you." "Sorry," squealed Sassafras Skunk. "My tail is slipping and I stinky puff whenever I get nervous." Chester burst out giggling, making everyone else laugh, even Badger and Sassafras. "Let's play follow the leader," said Pepper, jumping to the ground. "I get to be the leader." Chester got in line and jumped when the opossum jumped. He ran around the maple tree when the opossum ran around the maple tree. He splashed through Willow Creek, walked along a hollow log, and rolled down a bumpy, dusty hill until he was dizzy and giggling and covered in dirt, just like Pepper Opossum. "Oh, Sassafras!" cried Stanley Squirrel. "Sorry," chittered the little skunk. "I always stinky puff when I giggle." "Let's play darts," proposed Amber Porcupine. "Pull a quill from my tail and put an acorn on the sharpest end, so it'll fly like a dart." "Won't that hurt you?" worried Chester. "No," smiled Amber. "It only hurts if I get stuck." "Please be careful with those pointy quills," Mrs. Opossum warned the children. "We will," everyone promised. After everyone had their dart, and after everyone thanked Amber for the use of her tail quills, Pepper said, "Let's see whose dart goes farthest. It's my overday, so I get to go first." "You're the host," said Pepper's mother. "Do you think it might be more polite to let your guests go first?" "I guess so," said little Opossum. Chester saw how disappointed Pepper was and asked, "Would you like to throw your dart before I do?" Pepper's face lit up like a full moon. "We can throw them together." So Pepper and Chester threw their darts into the sky and watched them fly. The two quills landed side by side. "Hooray!" shouted everyone. "It's a tie." Chester and Pepper high-fived. Mrs. Opossum collected the sharp quills and put them safely away, then returned with some favorite snacks. Chester's eyes popped when he saw the bark plate filled with rotten fruit, nuts, and dead bugs, and the bird's nest bowl crawling with grubs and slugs. "Delicious," mumbled Chester as he crunched into a cricket between his teeth. Crunch. After snacks, Chester went with his friends to Willow Creek, where he caught minnows and let them go, and then skipped stones across the water. That's how they get their name right there. Washing hands, washing there. "Oh, Sassafras!" cried everyone. "I'm sorry," yawned the little skunk. "I stinky puff when I'm sleepy." "I'm sleepy too," yawned Badger, and Stanley, and Amber. "So are we," confessed Chester and Cassie. And though it was still early in their overday, even Pepper admitted he was all tuckered out. So everyone was curled up and fast asleep in the opossum's hollow. Everyone but Chester Raccoon. He laid awake and pressed his mother's kissing hand to his cheek. He felt her love and warmth all around him, and he wasn't afraid to sleep in Opossum's hollow. But it wasn't his hollow. Chester missed sleeping across from his brother Ronnie. He missed sleeping beneath the window where starlight woke him for school. He closed his eyes and imagined he was home, and a tiny tear rolled down his face. Mrs. Opossum understood how Chester felt. "Would you like to go home?" she whispered. Chester nodded. "Yes, please." "My neighbor, Mrs. Rabbit, will walk you home," she told him. "Thank you for coming to Pepper's overday." "Thank you for inviting me," yawned Chester. When Chester arrived home, he jumped into his mother's arms. Mrs. Raccoon wrapped him in a huge, welcoming hug. "Thank you for bringing him home," she told Mrs. Rabbit, and then carried Chester up into his very own hollow. Chester curled up in his mother's lap, nested into her soft, cozy fur, and breathed in her familiar, comforting scent. "Are you angry that I came home early?" he asked her. Mrs. Raccoon gave Chester a gentle squeeze. "Ronnie and I missed you so much. You came home just in time. But did you enjoy Pepper's overday?" "Uh-huh," whispered Chester. Then he fell fast asleep, dreaming of his day spent with his friends, knowing he was back in his mother's loving arms. The end. So, in that book there, Chester had an overday as opposed to a sleepover, which is fitting because raccoons are, of course, nocturnal, which means they are awake during night and sleeping during the day. There's a few animals that are like that. Bats are like that, owls are like that, raccoons, of course. And the other thing we saw in this book was that delicious feast that Mrs. Opossum made for everyone. So raccoons, along with all of Chester's friends, are, for the most part, omnivores. Some of these guys are carnivores, and some of them are herbivores. But raccoons eat it all, just like us. There's grubs and slugs in the nest bowl. There's some acorns and some rotting fruit on the plate. And Chester will also eat fish from the stream and frogs or small little animals that a raccoon can catch. So they eat about a third of each of that. A third of bugs, a third of frogs and fish and animals, and a third of berries and seeds, depending on what they can find and depending on what season it is. And as a result, their scat looks just like ours. Here's an example of some raccoon scat. Do any of you know another word for scat out there? You can say it out loud if you'd like. So there's some raccoon scat. So if you see that in the park, you can know that there was a raccoon there. Pretty interesting. So I have one more thing to show you, and then we're going to read a second book, and that is this nice hide of a raccoon. So here you can see there's the head of the raccoon, and that mask we talked about, the black mask over its eyes. You can see how long it is. This one here is approximately probably 40 centimeters from its nose to its hindquarters there. Then it has a long tail, which can be 20 centimeters long or so. This is about an average-sized raccoon. And it has very warm fur, which is sort of brown and gray and black in color. And their fur is quite thick and warm because raccoons spend all winter long out looking for food. They don't hibernate like bears. They're out all winter long searching for whatever they can find. The next book that we have is called Little Juniper Makes It Big. It is written by Aidan Cassie and is published by Farrar Straus Giroux Books. Little Juniper Makes It Big. Juniper was little. Too little, she thought. Adults only build things in adult sizes. She grumbled just loud enough for her mama to hear. If kids made houses, we'd make them so they fit properly. Like all clever children, she found unfairness annoying. Falling in a toilet is really unfair. Patience, Junebug, her mama told her. You're growing more every day. But 3 days later, Juniper was still no bigger. At bedtime, she couldn't concentrate on her book. For my whole entire life, everything's been too big for me, she thought. Movie seats, too small. Piano keys, way too big. Sinks, too tall. Doorknobs you can't even reach. Car seats and counters just out of reach. Later that night, Juniper's little thought grew. By breakfast, her little thought had become a big idea. By lunchtime, a cunning plan. She was going to build things right. Juniper assembled springboards and stilts, built heighteners and hoppers, made cranes and catapults, and even flew by balloon. But despite her inventiveness, Juniper's efforts fell short. By Monday, Juniper felt smaller than ever. Wait up!
Dad's trying to get her in there.
Things were better at school. At school, she didn't feel little. At school, she was average. Some kids were taller, some were smaller. The new girl, Clove, was tiny. Juniper liked hanging out with Clove. She was amazing. Being small didn't stop her at all. Sweet salamanders, how did you do that? Asked Juniper. Grippy sharp nails, a parachute tail, and she lowered her voice. Extra stretchy armpit skin. Want to come for a sleepover? She asked. We could practice climbing. Oh, yes, said Juniper. Some unsmallness lessons were just what she needed. She counted the days until the weekend. On Friday, Juniper packed her suction cup shoes, 13 feet of rope, and a helmet. She said goodbye to her mama and headed to Clove's house. But when she arrived, she found she didn't need to climb or stretch for anything. In Clove's home, Juniper was adult-sized. This house is perfect, thought Juniper. Well, mostly perfect. Hide and seek was unexpectedly quick. Swinging was surprisingly low. And dress-ups were, well, just awkward. Not to mention jumping on the bed. By the time they got ready for bed, Juniper didn't feel small at all. "Juniper, let's play at your house next time," said Clove. "I bet it's huge. I bet I could hide in your sock drawer. I bet your bathtub feels like a pool." Clove actually seemed to enjoy being small. Juniper hadn't ever thought of it that way. But a cramp in her tail made it hard to focus on that idea. The next day she returned to her way too big house. "Our home is very nearly almost perfect," she said. And while there were still plenty of things Juniper didn't love about being little, most things were wonderful. The end. So thank you very much for joining us today for story time all about raccoons. I hope we learned a little bit of information about raccoons and enjoyed our stories. Please check out all of our upcoming programming at rdco.com/parks for both in-person and virtual programs. Have a great day.